All right. Hello and welcome to AWS Made Easy. It's our special Friday episode number 67. I'm Stephen Barr. This is Rahul Subramaniam, and
Hey everyone.
we are so lucky to be joined by Andrew Wood and Sarah Pepper. Andrew is the worldwide tech lead for end user compute, and Sarah is a partner solutions architect, public sector. We are so grateful to have both of you. I couldn't think of a more fun set of guests to have on this special Friday episode. How's everyone doing today?
All good, and it's good to know that the mute button's working.
Stephen, the check is in the post for that fantastic introduction.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome.
Oh,
So I'm going to kick it off with a quick note. As you can see, my background is completely changed, and as promised, just before we went into that countdown, I have tons of Lego behind me. And Sarah, you were showing me some of the Lego stuff that you have,
Oh yeah.
which is the common interest over here. Awesome. Wow, the Ghostbusters. Man,
Oh, well,
that's awesome.
next time we do this, and I know that it's a Lego off, I'll remember to do all of my stuff. I've not got any of mine here.
You've not got your toys with you.
I feel Legoed out. Stephen, do you have any Lego? Well, not that I could show on air. No.
Let's see. I've got some. I've been doing more 3D printing lately than Lego. No, I don't have any good Legos to show, unfortunately.
But anyway, this is going to be such a fun episode on a Friday night here. Thanks, Sarah and Andrew, for joining us. We are going to be talking about end user computing today. So, do one of you want to kick it off and give us an introduction of what the end user computing category under the AWS services is all about?
Yeah. Well, we've got. Oh, sorry, Stephen.
And tell us about yourself too, and what brought you to end user computing.
Exactly.
Oh, good point. So yeah, 20 plus years now in IT. I can't believe I'm saying that number, but that's happened. And most of that has been in end user computing. It's been a main thread throughout my IT career. I just enjoy it. I get it. I love the challenges that it brings with it. And that's, Stephen, that's why we're here today. And that I was talking to one of your colleagues who was on my journey when I was load testing EUC systems to see which hard drive would be best and which would accommodate more users onto a server. Would it be SSD? Would it be SAN? Who knows? So, your colleague helped me in that decision for a particular customer way back when, about 10 years ago.
Wow.
So yeah, that was my journey. Andrew, what was your journey?
Well, obviously a harder paper round than yours, Sarah. If you've managed 20 years and look like you do, I obviously need to get out more. For me, end user compute started. I was a programmer on Unix systems, which everyone knows, made famous by the film. And we were migrating from Unix environments to Windows. And you went from effectively green screen to not green screen. In that time, the Unix environment that we were delivering was effectively delivering an application where you were delivering it from a central environment with lots of regional access points. And when you're trying to access data remotely using a terminal connection, super efficient. When it becomes Windows, not so efficient at all. And so we had to think of different ways. And way back in that day, it was Citrix was a brand new solution. Citrix at that time, WinFrame was a brand new solution, and I got to understand that technology eventually once I actually read the manual rather than just clarting about with it. And then over the number of years, that is slightly more than Sarah's, I've been working with a large amount of customers and environments where people want to work remotely, don't necessarily want to be bound by going into an office, want to be able to work more flexibly, and that is where I come from. obviously with a harder paper round than Sarah's. Or one of us has a really, really awful painting out in the back room, and one of us doesn't. I'll leave that.
That,
to the viewers
that is the
capable
most
hands.
fun introduction I've heard on this show till date. Stephen, would you agree?
I'm being conscious that if I'm going to laugh and spit out my coffee, it's not going to be on my camera.
on a Friday in September. All right then.
There's always time for a first. Okay, so let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about
Still not forgiving
computing.
you for the Lego, but let's crack on. Okay.
Fair enough.
Yes. So yeah, AWS. We've got a family. We've got a suite of services. We've got Amazon Workspaces, so your persistent desktop. We've got AppStream, which is selective persistence, streaming, application streaming. We've got Workspaces Core, so that's an infrastructure only VDI solution. So you can bring your third-party management software to the table. And we've got Workspaces Web as well, which allows a low-cost, secure browser service. So yeah, we've got options for everybody. But I have two favorites, which is Workspaces and AppStream, because that's been my experience, and they're just so good. They just work, and they do what they say they should do on the tin. So yeah, I like them. Not that the others don't; they do.
You have to pick two favorite children, always.
They would be my favorites, right? Yes.
Andrew, which are your two favorite children?
Can you mop that up?
There is no particular favorite. It is like, as a parent, you can't possibly pick one, whereas Sarah just rocks in and goes, yeah, I'll have those two. They're the best one. We talked about this in London when we did London Summit. I said, Sarah, you can't just have two out of all of the family. And Sarah went, I don't care. I love them more. For me, all of them are equally fun. For a lot of our customers, Workspaces is the one that is forefront of their minds. A lot of customers who come to AWS and say, give me an end user compute solution, they're thinking about Workspaces. Fair. AppStream is the second one. Workspaces Core and Workspaces Web are newer. They have come out more recently. Me, personally, all equally useful for people. I'd love them all dearly. I have no favorites, unlike some people on the call.
I wonder who Andrew is talking about. Anyway. Okay.
No names. No names. It's not about finger pointing or saying it's Sarah.
Well, so for those of us who aren't familiar with Workspaces, what's the elevator pitch? How would you sell Workspaces to someone considering it or thinking about either doing Workspaces or buying a giant pile of laptops?
For me, it's like martini time.
Given it's one of your favorites, do you want to take it?
Anytime, any place, anywhere. So
like the analogy.
With Amazon Workspaces, as long as you got a HTML5 browser, so that you could be on your iPad, you could be on an Android device, a laptop, you can grab your browser and access a desktop experience. And that could be a graphics intensive workspace just at your fingers. So yeah, for me, that's it just makes it so easy to do that. And then you've got AppStream, which is application streaming. So I particularly see the use case for this, and again, Andrew's, I've got favorites, is ISVs. So you've got an application that in the olden days you'd send the CD or you send the exe file to your customer to install, and like Andy mentioned earlier, you don't read the guide. Nobody reads the guide, the best practices. They put it on, and then next minute it's 10 calls to support or a chatbot now to find out how or why it's not going on. With AppStream, and if you're an ISV, an independent software vendor that's selling software, you can encapsulate your software in that image so it's ready to go. So if someone says, I want to try AutoCAD or I want to try X software, brilliant. Here's a link. Again, get your iPad, tablet, laptop, whatever device, as long as it's got HTML5 browser supported, and away you go. You're connecting in, and you're using that application configured as it should be, and the sales conversion in that speaks no more, in that you're using the software as sweet as it should be, straight off the cuff. And then, do you want to talk about the other two, Andy? My not so favourites.
The two that you don't like, Sarah. Yeah, no. I'll bring it back to bunch of laptops, and we definitely saw this during COVID. It's like a bunch of laptops is great if you can get a bunch of laptops, and then realize that you've got to maintain that bunch of laptops, right?
Yeah.
With end user computing, you're making the service centralized, and the device can be a range of devices. You no longer have to manage the device. You're now providing whatever it is that end user needs to do whatever it is that they need to do. Maybe it's a graphics intensive thing. Maybe it's a developer thing. Maybe it's design Lego. Whatever. They don't need an end device to be able and capable to do that. They just need to present it and be able to work wherever. We do work with lots of customers who might be working for a lot of different organizations and might in the past have needed a laptop for every organization because that's the way they work. Now they just need one device. It gives you a greater amount of flexibility. Now, Sarah's talked about workspaces and AppStream, her favorites. Workspaces core, as I mentioned, workspaces, quite often when customers come to AWS, it's workspaces and remote desktops, thanks very much. But they'll already have some sort of remote working solution. What they want to do is make use of the workspaces technology, but bring their own protocol. They want to make use of devices they've already got configured. They understand the protocol. They understand the infrastructure. They want to use the workspaces service. Just keep a lot of stuff that they've got to get. So workspaces allows them to use the workspaces core allows them to use the workspaces service, but keep their existing protocol, their existing configuration as their migration to cloud. And for some customers, they've deployed end user compute purely to have access to internal services that are accessed by a browser. So why do I need to set up a full desktop environment or an AppStream environment when all I need is a remoted browser in a secure environment? That's what Workspaces Web's about. And one day Sarah will love them as much as I do.
Well, I can see the work. No, experience. I can see Workspaces Web is
just move on. Just move on.
No, there's a particular customer I was working in the insurance sector, and in the insurance sector, there's lots of web-based applications that they use. So Workspaces Web is brilliant because they don't need that desktop experience. They don't need stream applications. They just need access to websites because that's either internal websites or external, because that's the process that they go through in their workflow. So I get it. And Workspaces core, like you say, if you've invested in Citrix already, but you don't want that scalability, the burden of scaling your hardware to meet graphic demands in your applications, etc., bring it to Workspaces core. You've got the best of both worlds. You're not losing the cost you've already got in your licensing with Citrix, but you are taking that differentiated heavy lifting of hardware with that. So, but another thought came to mind when you were speaking with AppStream is, again, going back earlier in my career as in IT support, we would have to have a bastion server, so a middle server that we would hop onto with all our management tools to then connect to the client. Well, if I had AppStream, I would log onto the browser and there would be my management tools. What I need to do, or do I need to go into AD group policies? Do I need to go into backup software to see how the backup's gone? I could have all those applications in one browser. There we go. And I don't need to worry about my profile and the persistency and being at reg keys and all that good stuff. It'll be just there. So
Got it.
To call that out.
I'm thinking back to my consulting days where if you have 3 or 4 clients at the same time, each IT department has a different policy, and you do end up with 4 or 5 laptops in a backpack that you're doing for your day-to-day work, and each one has its own processes and procedures and gets issued by their IT department, and you have to go through all these processes. And Andrew, I really like what you said about supply chain, right? It's if you can actually get the hardware that you want. I started one particular role, and they were an all Mac shop, but then they ordered an Apple for me, and it was 2 months out. So in the meantime, they're like, "Okay, we'll just use what you've got." And I was like, well, I've got a ThinkPad with Arch Linux on it. And well, we've never had this in our shop before, so this is going to be a bit different. So,
I recall working with one large customer where they would send out IT equipment to their end users. They'd send out a router, they'd send out a device, and the easiest way for them to get that back was to search for it on eBay. I mean, this is a major problem for them. They just wanted something simpler where they didn't have to send out equipment. They didn't have to do that whole lifecycle management. Or if they did have to send it, they wanted it as simple as possible rather than a laptop that may or may not go wrong or may be used or sold on. So if we can simplify that end device requirement and put that centrally, so it could be so that what you're using as an end user can be managed easily, could be upgraded if needed to be, can be downgraded as well if needs be, if required. You know, if you want to save on costs, you don't actually using that stuff. You can manage it more readily if it's centrally managed and make the end device as simple as possible. That would be super great.
Makes a lot of sense. So tell me a little bit about the backstory. So AWS has been, in the business of helping developers build new applications for the internet right through the early 2000s, right? How did end user computing come into being, or how did that get attention when it seems to be slightly, I wouldn't say orthogonal, but it's at least at an angle different from the mainstream, which is building all these developer API. So how did the idea of these end user computing services come about?
Why would it not? The fundamentals, let's go back to Sarah's example, where fundamentally you want to be able to create an environment where users can not necessarily need the end device that maybe developers want, and they want to be able to develop within AWS and do that securely as they need, right? Here, we can provide an end user computer environment, so you can log on remotely, do away with Bastion hosts, just be able to access your environment remotely from a wide range of devices. Just gives that extra flexibility. And also consider, yes, AWS is for builders and all about creating environments to help people build, but ultimately, what are you building for, right? You're going to be building for end users to be able to use and consume a thing that you've made. How are you going to make that most straightforward? With end user compute, you're not only helping the developers who are going to be developing these environments, but you're helping them to serve end users in the application environment creation that you've got as you migrate to a full web-based, API-based environment. Right? There's still going to be some legacy stuff that you need to be able to migrate on. End user compute, workspaces, AppStream workspaces, core, to an extent, workspaces, web, all helping there. That's what was driving the initial thought.
Got it. So let's
first to market as well. I think in terms of desktop as a service, if I remember correctly. Anyway,
great. So let's just double down on workspaces to start with. What do the economics of workspaces look like for IT departments? Like, what tilts the decision towards workspaces for them? Are there specific use cases? Are there certain economics that play into effect, or is it just behavior in some cases?
Ooh, there's two good statements there: economics and behavior. Sarah, did you want to take on the behavior one or the economics one? Do you want to steal my thunder as you've done with Lego?
Good job you don't hold a grudge, Andy. Yes, for me, with the workspaces, because it's the persistent desktop, so it's the behavior, it's the experience that you're wanting your users to have. Are you wanting that laptop experience that you go into your workspaces and you've got your desktop, your icons where you want it, you've got your toolbars where you need it, you have the applications, you have all the links there, you have your map drives, etc. So that's what would be the workspaces.
Actually,
tool.
the question that I was asking was slightly different. In terms of behavior, what I meant was, I think some of the examples that Andrew was talking about, where you don't want your machines to be sold on eBay, as an example, or you don't want, your device, or it's hard to secure devices that are remote in general. So those are certain behavioral constraints you want to add to these devices that IT departments have. So I'd like to understand from the existing customer base, like what drives them to switch over to workspaces over the traditional laptop methods? Because is it an economic story that you sell to them and it makes total sense to do that? Or is it more a behavior thing where, even though it might be kind of on par on a commercial basis, the larger behavioral benefits of having this secured environment and giving universal access to all these other devices in a secure way still makes sense? So what's the typical pitch that triggers a buy for workspaces?
Okay, for me,
flex. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I was going to say flex.
Yeah, no,
I was going to say
flexibility.
flexibility.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah.
flexibility.
Well, I've just got that
Customers are
visual.
being driven by you've got a visual. Sorry, customers are driven by wanting to be able to be flexible and rapid in their delivery. And as Stephen mentioned, if they're buying IT equipment, having to manage IT equipment, having to manage their back end, that takes more time. Sarah mentioned this at the top, way back in the tens of years during the war, when it was all black and white and there were dinosaurs. She was looking at doing hardware studies in order to allow her customers at that time, in order to expand out their environment. I remember talking to large scale healthcare customers who wanted that flexibility that remote working could bring, but only had a finite amount of data center space. When it comes, so customers want flexibility, customers want adaptability, but customers also increasingly want speed of delivery. And to do that while you're building out your own hardware, to do that while you're delivering full laptop pieces, is hard. Yet, if you've got the flexibility of a service that's already been managed for you, you could be more rapid in that deployment. And that's where we see customers having that trade-off. Is it always cheaper? Sometimes, if I was to buy a laptop and I was to look at the cost of a desktop as a service over time, it might seem that the desktop as a service as a time was more expensive. Yet, if I bring in the whole management costs, delivery costs, the whole life cycle costs, I can find that that desktop that I've provided remotely is going to be more cost effective over time, more flexible over time, than just giving someone a laptop and hoping for the best.
Yeah, our team was a team of 5, so you'd have one looking at the hardware, and I can remember a particular year where HP with DL380s, and HP had updated their motherboard, but it had an impact on our Citrix solution. So we had to upgrade the BIOS in order to make Citrix happy. And you've got a hardware operator. You've then got the policies that are required within an end user environment. You've then got the business as usual. My icons aren't saving where they need to be. Profile management going on there. So we had a team of people. When you're moving that to AWS, when you're moving that to the likes of workspaces, you don't need to worry about updating the BIOS. That hardware is sorted out. You don't need to be worried about those hot fixes and updates, because that's all managed by that managed service. And if you want to bring your own license, you can do as well. So you can select bundles that say, we can sort that out for you, so you don't need to worry about bringing your OS license, or you can bring your own. So it just takes that weight off, so your team of 5 can be more productive and do better user experience things with their time.
Yeah, I'm going to give you one example that kind of blew me away when it came to. Actually, this is AppStream. So let's just actually dive into AppStream, which is kind of a paddle, but has all the things that you were just talking about. So I think this was about 4 or 5 years ago. And again, when I first started into 3D printing, I needed some CAD software to quickly design some parts. And I wanted to try out SolidWorks. And I signed up for a trial of SolidWorks to see how it would work. And believe me, it actually pulled up an AppStream URL when I signed up for the trial. And I was using SolidWorks CAD software in a matter of about 2 minutes, playing around with it, designing the parts that I wanted. And it was unbelievable. I didn't think that it was possible. And literally, this was a US East 1 deployment, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was US East 1. And I was sitting in India at that time. So virtually the other end of the planet when it comes to latencies. And yet I could, work with it so seamlessly that it completely blew me away. And I was really, really impressed with what that could do. The thing that I took away from that was, so in the other day job that I have that is run by my clone every day, I play the role of group CTO for a larger group of enterprise software companies. We started putting out some of our old legacy Windows-based applications into AppStream and started using that. And what's remarkable and what's so liberating for ISVs over there is that you don't have to manage 15 versions of your software and maintain 15 versions just because your customers are not upgrading just in time. And by managing it all at the back end, and you turn what is an on-premise solution into a SaaS-based solution with a subscription, which is literally where every legacy software company wants to move on. So AppStream was remarkable, from that perspective, at least from an ISV standpoint.
Sarah, I think we should just leave and let Rahul just talk about AppStream for the next 30 minutes.
I'll go play on Lego.
I'm a huge fan of AppStream, having used it myself. So just wanted to put out a couple of those use cases that I experienced in the early days. So yeah. So tell us a little bit
still
more about
doing
the
that.
Glad to hear that hasn't changed.
I don't know. I don't know how we could do better than that.
On that, Rahul, is that I'm working with a partner at the moment on a similar journey, in that they want that experience that you've just shared there, and they're not getting it. And what I'm doing with them is talking them through, well, it's right, it's rendering, but where is that file coming from? Is that coming from on-premise somewhere else? And if so, could we get it closer? Could we get it in AWS preferably, or can we get it closer so that rendering is part of it? And then the other element I'm talking to them about is, what's in your image? What's in that desktop experience? Have you got a load of group policies in there that could be delaying that process? And more, the big one, what instance type have you chosen to run that CAD software on? If you've chosen small to do that, that's not going to get anybody anywhere. But let's look at a graphic intensive utilized for that purpose. So yes, we've got a suite of instances, but it's choosing that right one for that solution. So I'm working them through, and I hope, Rahul, that in a few weeks' time they'll be saying, "Oh, we're getting the experience that we wanted, that we thought we'd have, that we can render in minutes now rather than hours."
That is awesome. So I'm going to ask a relevant question, because I still have a bunch of products that I can't get on AppStream. And the reason why is because a lot of these products actually do require local network access. So the one thing, and that is a problem that we actually weren't able to resolve. So what are the best practices? For example, we have a tool that's basically helps with LAN management. It's a simple Windows desktop app that sits in your network, and it does all the local LAN management. Or we have, solutions that are email. Basically, they work on your Exchange servers that are local to your environment. and they basically help process a lot of email. They help archive or backup your emails. And there are a lot of desktop solutions that do just simple things like that. And it makes sense to have them run remotely and managed by us rather than, running it inside an environment where there are a million issues that show up for all kinds of different reasons. But this network connectivity to the local environment is a challenge for a large number of applications. Are there any best practices or solutions for bridging that kind of connectivity issues?
Yes.
Yes. Go on, Andrew.
I'll take this one. I mean, as Sarah said, ideally, any data that you've got, any application environment is as close as possible to your remote desktop. Like, this isn't AWS, this is like VDI 101, right? So put all of your data close, so it's file storage or database access. But we do have customers who, for whatever reason, maybe they're in a migration and haven't moved everything yet, or maybe there's local access still required for whatever reason. Then you will still need access. Do make sure that you've got that network connectivity. It might be VPN access. It might be direct connect that allows from your VPC environment connectivity to wherever it is that you need access. Definitely with AppStream and our Windows client, you can access local resources as well. So we've got customers who are using AppStream where you've got a remote session, but being able to print off, use local file storage in order to access data. Is that the bestest way? I would say for the fastest user experience, for the greatest user experience, have everything as close as possible to the AppStream instance. But there's a range of connectivity and migration tools available, including but not limited to VPNs, direct connects, file sync storage, that allows you to take data and have it presented within your AppStream environment, or using the AppStream Windows client to be able to access local resources so that you can make use of that as well. I was working with a customer in the UK where they do like design within an AppStream environment and then print off a bill of materials locally and then issue a file locally, which sounds very similar to the sort of issues that you're having, Rahul. It's like there, using the AppStream Windows client allows you that local device access, which is what you're looking for. And I know it's something that the teams are looking to extend all the time, because having your session run remotely is great, but there'll be a range of devices that you might need access to, and we're extending that range all of the time. Now, we've brought in webcams, we've brought in audio, we brought in some USB devices. We're extending that as needs be. So hopefully for people who are listening out in the future, that'll be useful. And for your applications that you need, I'd set up your VPN access or set up your direct connect. There's a team of people willing to help you if you find that difficult.
Awesome. We'll definitely take you up on that.
Yeah, I was thinking FSX to suggest, moving it to FSX
file
storage
storage.
instead.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. These are unfortunately not. So a lot of these cases are LAN management solutions. So you basically have to discover devices.
So you want that network connectivity.
So they usually end up being network connectivity. And I think for a bunch of these products, I remember about 2-3 years ago, we kind of had to give up on that because the connectivity solutions weren't as mature. And getting SMBs to deploy these getting them to install a Windows app is fine, but getting them to set up a VPN is a whole other difficult situation. Managing those network
that's fair.
connects.
I mean, even though they're managed services, so AppStream is a managed service, Workspace is a managed service. It's still within the customer's VPC, virtual private cloud. You can connect that VPC to your environment, but yes, that ability to very quickly spin up a VPN or direct connect is getting better. But that's how I would be looking to achieve that. And if you are an enterprising individual who could make that as a push of a button, there's a market opportunity for you right there.
Because like Sarah, like you said, people don't read the manual, right? They're going to double click whatever you send them and go from there.
Well, not Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah will read the manual. Diligent person that she is. I'm the type of person who wanders in and then 2 weeks later goes, I probably should read the manual now. Yeah.
Well, it's really.
Sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
Well, I was just thinking back to the economics of it, and it's amazing that all of these little things, right? Did you read the manual? Well, even that BIOS upgrade that you mentioned, right? Of how are you going to talk people through? If you can't talk them through a VPC config, how are you going to get them to flash their BIOS? And what happens when they brick their computer and they need to mail it back, right? There's so many things that could happen, and when you're comparing prices, you don't think about all those things. You just think about, okay, I've added 20 laptops to my shopping cart, and divided by 36 months. You're not thinking about all the things that are going to happen along the way. And I'm just in this conversation, kind of adding to my mental accounting tab of, oh yeah, that's going to cost, that's going to cost, that's going to cost. And it makes the economics a lot more straightforward than just comparing sticker prices of the hardware versus 36 months of the software.
Absolutely. It's an easy solve to say, here's a laptop, I will send you a laptop, and we're good. But the actual end user experience of that, it's like, Stephen, you're a technical person, Rahul, you're a technical person, Sarah, you're a technical person, I am a tech lead. Not everyone can manage that end device. If we can give them something simpler, or make use of a device they already have. If they've already got a Chromebook, if they've already got a simple laptop, let's give them access to the environment that they need to work on readily, easily, simply, just by clicking on a link. It could open up in a browser or could make use of a local client. It's going to be simpler and easier, more flexible. And as you say, Stephen, it's just less economics and hassle.
And you can't spill coffee on your app stream or Workspace's desktop.
I have
Andrew will
tried,
find a way.
There you go. I admire your confidence.
I
admire your confidence. Yeah. That sounds like a challenge rather than
AWS makes things happen, right? I mean, and you're the kind of person who will take up a challenge like that and figure out a way.
Well, and even if I don't, as tech lead, I know excellent people who could. So yeah, I'll take that on board, see what we can do. Come back to you at a future date.
Speaking of hardware,
I can hear our marketing team crying into their coffee right now. Yeah, let's move on.
Well, speaking of hardware, so I just destroyed a good piece of hardware by mistake. I was out on the water and fell in, and it was fine. I had it in a waterproof case. That was no problem. But then as I'm climbing back onto my paddleboard, the strap on the waterproof case breaks. And that's when I thought, why did I put $1,000 phone in a $5 case? Great. And so as my phone is sinking to the bottom of the water, I'm thinking, I bet if I was using Workspaces on my next phone, could I use an iPhone as a Workspaces client? Because I was reading about the new iPhones where you could actually plug it into a USB monitor. That'd be more than powerful enough, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It'd be powerful. It'd be powerful enough, but it's a little bit like the genie from the Disney movies, like itty bitty live in space. It's like you're trying to do desktop work on quite a small scale. Real estate.
No, apparently, with the new ones, you can plug it into an external monitor.
Oh well, that sounds like a fantastic thing that iPhones do. But my wife does iPhones. I don't do iPhones because my mother has an iPhone, and if I did do iPhones, I'd have to do my mother's IT support. So I don't. But if it was Android, we'd gloss over that, and hopefully she'll never ever see this ever. But if I do know that for sort of Android, Samsung have the Connect piece that can link up to monitors, external devices. So I'm not as au fait with the iPhone technology if that's just come out. It's probably incredibly expensive. But definitely with the Samsung devices where you can plug the phone and use that capability to go to a separate screen and a keyboard, that's definitely something that you can make use of for Workspaces. I've used that myself. But not iPhones because for family IT support. Gloss over that. We'll edit that out, I'm sure.
Let me talk about some of the limitations, just to have the audience be clear about what you can and cannot do. So let's talk about graphics, right? If you wanted to actually run powerful graphics, if you relied on OpenGL or DirectX or whatever your typical drivers are, is the throughput good enough to realize good graphics at the other end? Like, could you play a video, for example, on your workspace, and would it show up without reasonable lag, as an example?
There's a fun one.
Like, would you do video editing with a workspace?
I do video editing with a workspace. It really, and I'm sure this is what Sarah's going to say before I foolishly cut her off. I do video editing on a workspace. I use workspaces exclusively. I don't have a corporate laptop, just use workspaces. So all of the internal training videos, I just use and consume on a workspace. You do need a higher end workspace. I wouldn't be doing it with a value one. And it does rely on a good internet connection, for sure. I am excited and thrilled, Rahul, that you gave us an example of you using SolidWorks in US East from India, because that's quite a distance, and like physics is going to play a part there.
But the thing is that you don't have that much animation with SolidWorks, right? When you're designing a part, most of it is static. You move something around.
Most of it is static, and it's just moves. Yeah. So
I'd
be making sure. Moves. Oh well, we'll gloss over that when you do the fuller marketing video. But fundamentally, and this isn't just AWS. This is any sort of desktop as a service, remote working technology. Ideally, you as the end user are close, physics-wise, to where your end desktop is, to give you the best user experience. So can you do it? Absolutely. But there are considerations in terms of that remote technology playing back to your environment. So I do use it, but I have good connectivity to where I access in Europe. Is that going to be great for everyone? There'll be times when there needs to be a consideration. Right? And Sarah's already admitted to being in this game for at least a week. Sarah, do you want to add in anything else?
Well, I was just going to say, if I was being met with that use case, I'd probably sway, obviously needing more requirements, sway to AppStream, where you've got a lot more instance choice to choose from. So when you're choosing that graphic instance, you've got a few on there to choose from, and you can pick that sweet point of what you're needing. Are you wanting more memory? You wanting more GPU power? You can switch, you can toggle between those instances to get it right.
I don't think I have a concern on the back-end side of it, because I think there are enough powerful GPU-based instances. Yeah. What I care about is the rendering that happens on the browser at the end user terminal. So the reason why I pull this up is because in another life, about 25 years ago, my job was to build a X Windows client. And of course, this is not Windows, this is Unix graphical user interfaces. And for a very large automotive firm, we were trying to build a version of the X Windows client. And we ran into a problem that they were actually doing car design on back-end servers, which are real powerful GPU-based machines. But the experience on the front end was terrible because they were using OpenGL back in the day to render all the images. And then that over bitmap transfers or even compressed transfers was horrible as an experience. So we built a protocol that allowed the OpenGL instructions to actually come over the wire to the other end and be rendered locally in the browser or via the browser or via the client actually at that time. So I don't know how far those technologies have evolved since then or how that works.
It's moved since then. I mean, when you said 25 years ago, I was wondering, what on earth were you doing on your paper round? But apparently you were doing something.
I am old. Yeah. I am old. All my hair is gone, so you don't see the gray anymore.
But it is fair. I think remoting protocols have definitely moved on in that period. And I say that with confidence because I too have worked through those 25 years. And what was then is much different now. Yes, for workspaces, we use PC over IP from Teradisha as a technology, but we also have our own streaming protocol, the Workspaces streaming protocol. We make, for AppStream, extensive use of DCV, which is, again, an in-house protocol. They've improved. We've got the back-end services and capabilities, but I will flip it round and actually lean on those outside of AWS who've done extensive testing in this. It is interesting where we talk about end devices. Yes, it's great to be flexible, but if you're doing something that's really graphics intensive, you need to think about what is the end device I'm going to be using it on. It is fair to say we've got a flexibility with end user compute on a range of end device types, but if you're doing something very, very graphics intensive, do make sure that the end device is capable of rendering locally. Really low end devices might struggle, and you might think, oh, it's the remote desktop that's at fault here, and yet it might not be. It might be the local device that you've chosen. So for those use cases where you're doing some very graphics intensive work, or you're doing something that has real-time video or real-time video and audio, do make sure that the end device is capable of rendering and delivering, because using a very, very low cost, low power device might not be giving you the right user experience. You might need to upgrade that. Granted, you've got some flexibility in it. Maybe it's an iPhone. I don't know about iPhones for reasons that we've already mentioned, but having that lower cost device might not necessarily be giving you the user experience that you want.
I want to look at some user comments quickly. We had Michael said, "Worlds away from a green bar graphics on green bar paper." I believe the best we could do was a Space Invaders character. So hi, Michael. Thank you for joining.
I actually love the key punch cards, because I do remember, and this might offend Michael, or maybe compliment Michael. I remember being at school and doing key punch cards for delivery.
He said he started with them.
I am unsure as to whether or not AppStream or Workspaces supports it. So please check out with me offline about that.
And then speaking of key cards, we have Darko in the stream, and I don't know if you know Darko, but he loves vintage hardware. So I think we will. I'll ask Darko. Darko, if you're still on, let's figure out the oldest bit of tech that we can get workspaces to run on effectively. Now he was able to launch Kubernetes on a TRS-80, I believe. So let's see what we can do.
TRS-80s will run anything. That feels like an unfair challenge. You get it on a ZX Spectrum. That sounds fun. I look forward to that video in the future, Stephen.
Yeah.
And Darko.
What is the most vintage tech that we can run? I guess so. We need to figure out what is the oldest computer that can run a HTML5 compliant browser.
I'm sure Michael will be keying in his cards right now.
Just
to see what comes up.
Cool.
Okay. You've just set a load of nerds to nerd out now, haven't you? That's what you've done.
All right, so let's tune in a couple of weeks. Let's do a challenge. So this is a listener challenge. What is the oldest bit of hardware that you can get to run a Workspaces client?
Yes, Workspaces or AppStream, any AWS EUC service, because we don't have favorites, do we, Sarah?
No, Andrew. We don't.
My life will not be worth living after this call, I can tell you right now.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's switch gears for the
non-geeks. Slack message. Sorry. Yes, focus.
Yeah, let's switch gears to the non-geeks over here. Tell us a success story, if you can share, of a customer that really benefited from each of the EUC services. Like what comes to mind?
Services.
Yeah, I mean, one for Workspace, one for AppStream.
We've only got
or we can stick to the two.
There's hardly enough time.
We've got all the time in the world. This is the Friday bonus.
Well, the metaverse application springs to mind.
Wow, that's an interesting use case.
Yes, yeah, that was on AppStream, I believe. Let me just check. unless you know off the top of your head, Andrew. SimSpace. Was it
Oh no, I'm
SimWeaver?
going to hang you out to dry on this one. You said that first.
Okay.
Away you go.
Okay,
I
bear
wait
with.
with bated breath. Bear with, caller. Bear with. Shall I do the hold music while we're on?
Industrial metaverse. I think that one was the Twin Maker. That is a digital twin service. Do we have one on EUC?
My notes aren't quick enough.
Let's see. There's the Samsung Engineering uses GPU accelerated instances for graphics-intensive engineering.
Wow,
I'm trying to find the
that is
metaverse one.
interesting. By the way, while we're doing this, just a curious question that just popped in my head. If you had applications that require certain frames per second for rendering, for the quality to be good enough, is that a constraint on? Like, I would imagine that there'd be bottlenecks on the networking. Backend is not a problem. You can get to the right machine to do that. There'd be constraints on the protocol, on the networking, as well as the end user client. So assuming that the end user client could support a certain FPS, is there anything in the protocol?
Yeah, definitely for the managed services for workspaces for AppStream. It's a managed service, so we focus on the frames per second. If it needed absolutely tweaking, don't forget that while we have the managed services, if we look at AWS EUC more broadly, we've technologies in there such as the DCP protocol that you could put in your own instances. So if you needed something very specific to deliver your end user compute solution, you can break out of the managed services if you need to and absolutely tweak that frames per second and instance type and region as you need to be, because you've got access to the DCP protocol. Or to hopefully none of the EUC marketing people are on the call. I was at a conference earlier on in the year in Germany, and we had big car manufacturer talking, and they used that DCP protocol not on remote desktops, but on physical devices. And they had those physical devices in their office, but they used the technology that's in workspaces in AppStream in order to provide access to that. So AWS EUC is about that flexibility of device choice and device type. It can be a managed service like Workspaces Web, all of them, not just two favorites. Can be about that, but it could also be about you using the technology, the DCV technology. I will never live this down. I will get this in the next.
I want a trapdoor button. I want a button that can go for trapdoor.
Yeah, we'll edit this out. You can use that DCV technology to run in your own EC2 instances or on actual physical devices in your own environment if needs be. If you need that tweaking, Rahul, that you're talking about, if you need that absolute flexibility, you can build on, as many builders do, build on the technologies that drive the Workspaces family AppStream to deliver whatever it is that you need to deliver.
Got it.
Oh, do you have a whole list now, Sarah? Now that you've done your tap.
Well, I can't find the case study, but I've found the links and I've just popped them in our chat. So
let's set this on the screen. Oh, okay. Let's put this on screen. Sine Wave Entertainment. I'm going to put this in the comments for our listeners. I'll put the URL in the comments. This is a multi-user simulation. It looks like Second Life.
Yeah, so it was Pete Fergus, Andrew, that worked on this. So he worked with them on their offering on AppStream. So I just wanted to share, because like you say, that's great to have a metaverse application that needs a lot of graphics, that needs good user experience, and that's running. And another one on AppStream was Parkway Schools, but I'm just going to quickly look at that, see if that's.
I'll have to check out. Check this out. Sine Wave Entertainment.
I'd also throw in, just for those of us who remember punch cards and mainframes, there was a great AppStream
During
blog,
the war?
DXC Technology. Yeah, during the war. Which one? DXC Technology, who used AppStream to deliver a mainframe management environment. So just to go back to right at the beginning of the call, Stephen talking about different contractors having different laptops or different environments. That organization used AppStream in order to deliver a mainframe maintenance environment for their developers. So a great amount of flexibility. I think if you look at workspaces, there's a range of workspaces. Offerings where customers have used workspaces to deliver that, but what they want is a environment where people have got a bit of flexibility themselves to maybe install their own tools. AppStream, given that it's the same instance, will start every time you start up. For those customers who don't want the end user to be messing about with their environment and just want to be able to deliver, which I'm sure is what mainframe developers want. AppStream does that as well. So there's a great range.
This sounds fascinating. I think there's a lot that I have to catch up on when it comes to AppStream in particular for a lot of our use
definitely cases. For you, if you were looking at it 4 or 5 years ago, I would look at the latest offerings, especially if you're delivering your own applications. Back 4 or 5 years ago, you'd have had to manage your own scaling environments for AppStream. You can still do that today, but we've also now got elastic fleets where we'll manage the scaling for you. So you can put your application within an app block and then deliver that into an AppStream environment, and we'll take care of all of the scaling capabilities. So I know one of Rahul, awesome. Stephen, your key items from this series is, how can you drive down costs? How can you create efficiencies? Do look at the elastic fleet technology for AppStream. Very, very different. And now there's Linux AppStream, so that's possibly something you did not have 4 or 5 years ago. But my memory at my age gets hazy. So
no, Linux AppStreams didn't exist at all.
Yeah. Check out the elastic fleets.
Well, here's Sarah. I want to put the one that you just sent me on the screen. This is the Microsoft 365.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yes.
We got an hour in and not talked about this.
Yes, this is brilliant news. Yeah, this is brilliant news.
So this is hot off the presses. Well, pretty close. August 1st.
August. Yeah.
Okay, so how does this work? This is Microsoft 365. Okay, bring your own license model. Okay, so
I want to talk about it. I'm going to let Andrew do it because I think I might say words that should not be said. But I'm really happy. This opens up. It was such a constraint to our customers not being able to run 365 on workspaces and whatnot. And now, happy days. But yeah, let me hand over to Andrew before I dig a hole for two.
Yeah. Before I extol yet again my favourite children in front of the entire audience of the internet. No. It is absolutely great news, and all kudos to the team who helped drive this forward. 2019 time, Microsoft, in their wisdom, decided that M365, so Office 365 at the time, from a licensing perspective, couldn't run on anything outside of Azure or other people, but definitely not on AWS. So whether or not it's EC2, whether or not it's Workspaces or AppStream, it just wasn't licensed to run. Now, a lot of our customers were making use of Office 365 and then later M365. There's difficulty there. They'd love to be able to run this application set, Word, Outlook, etc., etc., etc. But as of August, Microsoft have changed the licensing policies. So if you've got Amazon Workspaces Core, you can install the M365 components, run them, and that's all license compliant. So that's absolutely great for customers. It's great for customers because it means that they can make use of Workspaces. They've got flexibility of choice. It's not just a Microsoft solution. They can make use of alternatives which includes AWS EUC services. So, yes, as of August 1st, you can deploy the most. Now, you could always, like technically, if I was looking at bits and bobs, you could always run it. Just licensing wise, it wasn't allowed. We did have the option of using our SPA licenses with workspaces, but a number of customers had already licensed Office using the 365 M365 program. Now they can make use of that today as well. So it's really great for customers. I know a lot of people are very excited about it, including Sarah, which is the most important person, obviously.
Okay, before we realize that we have to stop at some point, I want to ask you guys about some best practices on how to operate workspaces as well as AppStream optimally from a cost standpoint. What are the 1, 2, or 3 practices that you see customers, indulge in, which you would say, hey, these are bad practices, don't do this, or beware of these things before you dive into either using workspaces or AppStream, so that they don't kind of run into crazy builds or things that are just unexpected for them?
Couple of things off the top of my head would be instance size. So make sure you get the right instance for that solution. And that could be a learning curve. But reach out to your AWS account team, because they could be support for you while you're in that proof of concept stage. And then so once you've got instance sorted, is the on-demand always on? Do you need that machine instantly, always on? Or can you have that few second lag where you have it on demand?
By the way, can you do AppStream and workspaces on Spot?
So they're managed services, and it works slightly differently. If there was a cost optimization for both of them, for workspaces, make sure that you're running the workspaces cost optimizer in your environment. And what that'll do is a couple of things. It'll, as Sarah was mentioning, it'll monitor the workspaces and say, do you know what? You're using these workspaces for an amount of hours where it'd be best to be always on, or you're using workspaces where it'd be best to be on demand, or you're not using the workspaces at all. Why not terminate?
Terminate.
You can set workspaces cost optimizer to automatically terminate. I don't know a customer who's that brave, but it's useful to be able to know that. There's a great blog from Yuri on taking your cost information and giving you greater insight into which of your accounts are using workspaces and what the workspaces cost are. So if you're deploying workspaces cost optimizer, you know which accounts to hit first. And there's similar cost optimization information for AppStream. I would be looking at that. There is a best practices guide for deployment for both workspaces and AppStream. Do check out those manuals, because if, like me, you'll deploy everything and then think maybe I could do better. Those are the manuals that you should be reading, like I should, in order to get that best.
That is awesome.
And Sarah, you just sent me. I just posted it into our link or into our chat. So this looks like some instructions for how do you use fleet stopped. I think you said stop the entire fleet outside of business hours.
Can we share? Can you put it up on the screen?
Yeah, let me do that.
Let's do that and just walk through it quickly.
So this looks like, okay, I'll put the title, How to Use Automation to Optimize and Control Cost of Amazon AppStream 2.0. And then it's walking through Lambda functions that can do things. It looks like a cron task. Here we go. Yeah. Cron task.
You with your knowledge, right? Very good.
There you go.
Yeah. Unix.
This is cool.
I know this. This is the Linux system. Yeah. We've all been there.
Yeah.
Where was it? This one.
Did you go and find that just because of me?
Or me.
File browser,
and this is where Stephen. This is where Stephen brings out his fantastic Lego kit and goes, and I've got Legos.
Seeing that just reminds me of that Olympics game that used to play.
Daley Thompson's decathlon. Oh, is that what we're talking about now?
We're gonna have to mix in some of these in the shorts. Okay, this looks really good. Okay, so you can start the AppStream fleet every weekday, 9 a.m., and then
Yep.
just stop it at 6 p.m.
Yep.
I think,
Yep.
I think that's
Rahul,
one of the most amazing cost savings exercises.
Yeah. Is this where we say, "Oh, I've got that now," and my machine just shuts down?
Yeah.
No, Sarah, it's not, because that would look really bad, and we'd have to edit that out in post. No, don't do that.
Sorry, Stephen.
Yeah.
This is great. Oh, and then Darko mentioned, hey, this is actually that UI was actually a real piece of software, and was not just made just for Jurassic Park. It was a real file system, so that could have been a productive.
It is true. Yes. No.
Browsing in 3D. I'll put this back on
I
screen.
look forward to a future session where someone runs that piece of software in AppStream. There you go. There's another challenge for the audience.
I think Darko has a few SGI Indigo machines. Darko, is that right? There, he's also sent the link of where that's running.
Awesome.
And I think Darko does have those machines. He has some old SGIs running these.
All right, we need to get this this running. That would be really fun.
All right then. Okay.
That would be a fun public work. You can make a workspace. Have the Jurassic Park experience. Reboot the park. Close in the raptors.
Taco's looking at the chat channel. Taco's already on it. It's like, that's it. I've got nothing better to do today.
Well, it could be there in an hour. Bish bash bosh. Done.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Sounds like a fun hackathon.
Yeah. You can make use of. There's a free workspaces trial you can make use of. And I'm sure. Away you go. I look forward to the results.
There you go.
Awesome. So we have the free workspaces. We have all the best practices that you have to follow, and all the links are there. We're going to also post them on LinkedIn, so make sure you check them all out. Andrew and Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time to come here. This has been one of the most fun conversations. I don't think I've laughed.
One of the most fun. Oh, Sarah, we must try harder next time.
We'll raise the bar next time.
We'll raise the bar next time.
The thing is, it's always fun. There's just levels of fun. And
you dig yourself out of the hole as you need to dig yourself out of the hole, mate.
Is this, Stephen,
years of experience.
Is this tequila fun?
Almost.
We need to make that happen. I'm just saying this. We need to make that happen in person. I wish we were all on the same continent. But
hopefully soon at reInvent.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Awesome. But thank you
Stephen,
so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been top fun. It's always fun to be second fiddle to Sarah.
All right,
I'm glad you got the words right there.
Yeah, I took a run up to that one. Didn't want to make that.
Approved by the marketing department. All right, thanks everyone. Have a good weekend. And we'll
all right,
thank you everybody.
Take
Thank
care.
you so much.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Some tools just find AWS cost savings and make you do all the work. Visualizing cost opportunities is great, but that's not enough. CloudFix, on the other hand, actually delivers those savings for you. And you don't need to worry, because CloudFix is AWS recommended and easy to use. It's the only tool that fixes cost-saving opportunities, and not just finds. It's the easiest way to save money on AWS. It's all 100% automatic and risk-free. And the best part of all, it works non-stop. Stop overspending on AWS and click on the button to start saving now.